Hello, I'm Avi Lewis. We're back on the map. Tonight we've been focused on the historic shift in South Africa as the ANC government confronts anger from its base, the poor black majority that is not sharing in that country's newfound wealth. In China, the Communist Party government is beginning to acknowledge a similar dynamic. Behind the endless bull market, the red-hot economy, the confident nouveau riche, there is also rising frustration with inequality. According to the government's own figures, there are around 80,000 labor disruptions and protests every year in China, a clear sign that the trickle-down is trickling down too slowly for millions of people. So to zoom in now on the reality of inequality in China, here's a special documentary report from the CBC's Michel Cormier, a day in the life of Beijing's economic extremes.
It's 4 a.m. Dawn breaks over Beijing. In a parking lot where she runs a makeshift restaurant, Cheng Yelan is busy preparing the 700 pork dumplings she will serve during the day. When I first came to Beijing, she says, I lived by selling stuff on the street. We worked very hard, but the authorities chased us away. Sometimes they took everything from us. In her monster house in a gated compound outside Beijing, Jeanne Lang starts her day on the treadmill. She too runs a restaurant in Beijing. In fact, she runs 25 restaurants. During the Cultural Revolution, her family was banished to the countryside. Jeanne clawed her way out, made it to Toronto, came back with $20,000. She's now a millionaire and proud of it. It took me 15 years to come to this, she says. I did not get a penny from the government or anybody else. The harsh conditions of my parents' life toughened my character. Around 10 o'clock, her son drives her into town in his $300,000 Maserati. Zhang Lang glides over China's social divide and the illusion of its socialist society. Cheng Yelan has given up long ago on the idea of social equality. In the new China, she's left to fend for herself. Her husband, Feng Xiaoshun, lends a hand cooking the flatbread. He also handles the money. They have a son, Feng Jia, but he's back home in the village with Cheng's parents. Since they don't have a resident permit for Beijing, he would not have access to education here. If they get sick, they have no access to a doctor. We are very poor, says Cheng. We work hard. People with education do not live this kind of life. 11 o'clock. Zhang Lan confers with her chef over the lunch menu. Lan is one of the trendiest restaurants in Beijing and the showcase of Zhang Lan's empire. This is food for the rich, for the new Chinese bourgeoisie, including Communist Party members. The wine list is among the most expensive in Beijing. Fresh oysters cost $10 apiece. And Zhang Lang doesn't apologize for it. I think there should be a gap between the poor and the rich, she says. Rich people bring the society forward. They can help the poor with charity, by building schools, for example. Hers is the well-worn philosophy of trickle-down economics. In her parking lot, Cheng Yelan doesn't yet feel the benefit of this economic theory. It's a little unfair to have a big gap between the rich and the poor, she says. I hope my son can do well in school and get a college education. I don't want him to live such a hard life like us. Early afternoon, in the boardroom of her restaurant, Zhang Lan meets with lawyers to plan her company's listing on the stock market. Her goal, she says, is to make her company part of the top 500 in China. Cheng Yelan, not surprisingly, has more humble ambitions. My goal in life is to have a small restaurant in a real building with a roof so I don't get sunburned. In the meantime, she and her husband have to tear down their makeshift restaurant by 2 o'clock. Otherwise, they get into trouble with the landlord. Cheng Yelan then packs up her transient life and heads home.
A personal story of China's rich and poor from the CBC's Michel Cormier in Beijing. Now to talk about the policies and the politics driving inequality in China, I'm joined by David Kotz, professor of political economy at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. David, welcome to On the Map.
Glad to be with you, Avi.
So listen, when you read World Bank reports, which sadly I do, China is a staggering success story. 9%